Good day, you're watching Business World Live. I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Jess De Los Santos. Here are today's top stories. The inflation sizzles to a 14-year high in October.
The government's running debt swells to more than 13.5 trillion pesos.
Government agencies allay fear that Filipino seafarers are at risk of losing their jobs following the findings that the country did not comply with European standards.
And PLDT turns in another stellar earnings report card on the back of the sale of its telco towers. Let's begin our broadcast with inflation sizzling to its highest level in almost 14 years. Fresh data from the Philippine Statistics Authority showed that the Consumer Price Index accelerated to 7.7% in October from 6.9% in September. This October print is the highest recorded inflation since December of 2008. This also exceeds the Bangko Central's 2 to 4% target for the 7th straight month. But the October reading falls within the BSP's forecast of 7.1 to 7.9% inflation for the said month. Now, year-to-date, the average inflation stands at 5.4%. Core inflation also quickened to 5.9% from 5% in September. The PSA said the continued uptrend was primarily due to faster food inflation. Higher annual increments were also recorded in clothing, housing, and health, among others.
The country's total debt stock ballooned to 13.52 trillion pesos in September. Data from the Treasury Bureau reveals that government liabilities rose by more than 495 billion pesos since August, or 3.8% month-on-month. Nearly 69% of the country's debt came from domestic borrowings, while the remaining 31% came from external creditors. The Treasury attributes the increase in the debt pile to a weak peso and net issuance of government securities. Since the beginning of the year, the national government's debt has piled by 1.79 trillion pesos. Damage to agriculture caused by tropical cyclone Paeng has reached over 2.8 billion pesos. The Agriculture Department says the volume of production loss is estimated at 116,000 metric tons. Paeng has affected around 86,000 hectares of agricultural areas across 11 regions. Because of this, prices of vegetables in some supermarkets in Metro Manila have climbed by up to 20 to 40 pesos per kilo. Prices of highland vegetables also rose by 10 to 20 pesos. Agriculture Department attributes this to delays in the delivery of vegetables.
Sa trading post po, medyo bumaba yung mga dinadala, yung volume ng dinadala ng ating mga produkto dahil nga po dun sa mga daanan. Lumiit po ang dinala sa trading post, kaya affected din po yung dinala dito sa Metro Manila. But this is something that we are addressing. Kagaya nga po ng sabi ko kanina, hopefully that will go back to the pre-typhoon activities as far as volume and prices are concerned.
Again, October inflation accelerates to a 14-year high at 7.7%. Is this the peak, or should we be bracing for more pain ahead? Let's get insights from Alvin Ang, Chair of ADMU Manila University's Economics Department. Prof. Alvin, good day. Thank you for joining us. Your reaction first again to that inflation print, 7.7%. January to October, 5.4%. Is this the peak? I mean, we have the PSA now projecting the probability that might actually get past that level by November. But your point of view here, how long will we see an extension of this pace?
Yeah, well, as you have heard the report, basically the reason for the faster inflation is really coming from food. And we really have not yet felt the full impact, for example, of this recent typhoon. And then the continuing food supply problems all over the world. I mean, so that really tells us that this is not yet the peak. It could be higher this November, in December, or even January. So you are looking at additional impacts beyond the base effects of already, because last year was low, so you expect a little base effect of higher now. then plus the actual impact that we're experiencing.
Okay. Now, sir, can you nuance that a little bit? Because it seems that the oil prices, well, to a certain extent, have stabilized. It's not as much as high as it used to be, above 100. There have been rollbacks naman. There have also been, the help, the ayuda of the government in terms of the transport fares. But there's still the peso weakness, although it has not breached 60 to the greenback. Give us an idea of why this sprint continues to be increasing, especially year on year, despite all of these efforts, the BSP aggressively tightening here, the rollbacks in the fuel. And of course, you said that the Typhoon Paeng, it hasn't actually been reflected yet.
Well, primarily the efforts that we have been hearing right now or in the past few weeks and months have all mostly been monetary side. But we know that inflation in the Philippines is primarily a supply side challenge. So you have to make sure that supply is available. And this is the reason why prices are rising. Even basic food items like vegetables are rising. And also we have problems created by animal diseases like the ASF for pork and hogs and even chicken, bird flu. So this is not a unique Philippine condition anyway. So it's a regional thing, and so this is also like contributing to the tightness. Or the tightness in supply is adding to the price pressures, and so that's why you are reflecting high inflation.
Okay, and this time around, you now have at least the BSP giving, in fact, a guidance way in advance here. In 2 weeks' time, they are expected to hike rates by 75 basis points. Would that be enough to actually arrest future inflation expectations? And how long before we actually see that feeding into price stability?
Inflation expectation here from the BSP side is basically monetary. But as I said, the reason for inflation rising is its supply. So it is a combination of executive action with monetary policy to be able to stabilize it. But as we are seeing it, the BSP is already or has already told us, telegraphed to us, that it will follow whatever the Fed is going to do. With inflation not yet reaching peak in the U.S., probably we are going to see more rate hikes. Even as the U.S. still struggles with inflation, and other countries in the world too, like particularly UK has in fact reflected a very high food inflation as well. So this is a worldwide challenge, and on the executive side, you really need to make sure that you may import, but then you have to make sure that the import is available as well. So it is like a challenge that you're going to see in the next 2-3 months in the short term, and it could prolong. If there are a very limited supply of food all over the world, and even if our own local production has been affected by typhoons and also other challenges affecting our agricultural sector.
Sir, can you clarify that for our viewers here? Is this food shortage, supply shortage, still directly linked to the Russia-Ukraine war? Because commodity prices have been paring back. They're even back to pre-war levels. So why are we still having this issue of heightened food prices?
Well, it's because we import many of these food items. It's not that we are the only ones importing. And also, even if the food prices generally stabilize in the world, the grains, it is fertilizer that what is really adding to the problems of agricultural farms all over the world, particularly here in Southeast Asia, which has fertilizer has stabilized a bit, but still 4 times higher than its actual prices prior to the post the first year of the pandemic.
Okay, sir, let's talk about what you mentioned, which is the rate hike. No, they have mentioned they will be matching the Fed point by point. They're going to maintain this 100 bips spread. But given the global situation, and also the fact that, with too much rate hikes, especially in the US, they're looking at a recession here. To what extent can we keep catching up with these increasing in rate hikes without affecting, of course, the consumers' pockets, our ability to borrow and grow?
Well, that's a challenging question in the sense that you are really, forced by situation to follow the rate increase in the US. Otherwise, you risk the currency further, weakening, and also adding back to inflation, because importing items, particularly food and oil, will be higher price in that sense. So this is where the BSP is working on the monetary side on this matter. But looking on the supply side, that's why I said it has to be a two-pronged approach. It cannot be just the monetary policy working. It also has to work on the supply side by ensuring that adequate supply is available, so that you don't have higher price expectations that higher expectation could lead to higher inflation in the medium and the long term.
Also, Prof, given that you already mentioned about imports at the same time, but you have trade data coming in earlier today as well. You have September imports up by 14%, exports also up by 7%. In fact, that's beating projections that it will be contracting by 4%. And that's resulted, of course, in a lower trade deficit at $4.82 billion. Your thoughts on those figures?
Well, that's a monthly measure, but if you look at the cumulative impact of that, that's where we need to look into more detail, because overall, how much does that require foreign exchange for us to be able to foot the bill on all of those imported items that we are trading? So this is really a question of domestic capabilities catching up as well. So even if your export is increasing, but the rate of increase of imports must double, right? 14, 27. So even if it's showing us less deficit, but if you add it, you make it cumulative, you see that it's actually still high, anytime highest in the last decade.
But will this in any way bring a bit of a reprieve here for the currency? Plus, you have also to consider remittances by year end.
Yeah, well, we already saw the impact of certain policy measures, policy statements made by government, and the expectation also that during this last quarter of the year, remittances tend to be higher. So that can add to like the cushioning effect to cushion the peso from further weakening.
Okay, and finally, sir, before we let you go, debt stock 13.5 trillion pesos at the moment. Is this a worrying figure here when you look at it compared to GDP and our GDP growth? And especially as the peso is remaining weak, are we able to, with our growth and revenues, finance and service this debt?
Well, I'm not going to worry so much about the debt as long as the economy is growing faster. And also you have to look at the composition of the debt. A significant portion of that debt is domestic, about 60 to 70%. So that only 30% is exposed to foreign exchange fluctuations. So if we're able to increase the economy without adding more debt, then relative to the GDP, that debt stock would go down. So that's the challenge. That's the challenge here to the government, to increase growth and to increase the size of the economy, outsize the debt. Technically, is what you need to do, and make sure that those borrowings that have been made are used for productive activities, not just for patching up things in the economy.
All right, a lot of challenges there. Growing the economy as, of course, we deal with persistent inflation, probably still until 2023, as you mentioned.
Early next year.
But again, policy needs to be both, not just from the monetary side, but from the supply side as well. Thank you so much, Professor Alvin Ang, Economics Department Chair of Ateneo de Manila University.
Thank you.
Now let's pause for a quick break, but coming right up after that. President Marcos vows to pursue more infrastructure projects as he leads the signing of 2 contracts for the Metro Manila Subway project.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
You're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel.
President Bongbong Marcos vows to pursue more major infrastructure projects to promote interconnectivity and reduce travel time for Filipinos. The President made the commitment during the signing of 2 contract packages for the Metro Manila Subway project. According to the President, the country's first underground railway system would cut travel time between Quezon City and Pasay from 1 hour and 30 minutes to a mere 35 minutes. More than reduced travel time, the President says the subway project will improve the quality of life in Metro Manila. For this reason, the President has committed to pursue more projects that will benefit Filipino commuters.
We owe it to the Filipino people to build major roads and critical infrastructure that will not only spur progress and social change, but also promote interconnectivity, ease traffic, and reduce travel time.
The Transportation Department and the Maritime Transportation Authority, or Marina, allay fears that Filipino seafarers in Europe are at risk of losing their jobs.
The government assures seafarers that the country did not fail the audit of the European Maritime Safety Agency. Gerard de la Peña with the report.
It took Juldran 5 months to land an entry-level post in a foreign shipping company. He also shelled out more than 100,000 pesos to attend trainings and expedite requirements.
Yung mga international ngayon, sir, pahirapan po talaga. Ang una, age limit, sir. Tapos, yung mga training din po, sir, ang mamahal na. Meron din naman pong mga training na hindi naman po kailangan sa ibang sa kumpanya. Pinapakuha po ng Marina, kaya ngayon magastos po.
But based on the 2020 audit conducted by the European Maritime Safety Agency, or EMSA, the Philippines fell short of the standard set by the European Commission. Included in the grievances brought up was the quality of training that Filipino seafarers get.
Merong mga issue about hindi nagagamit yung mga tamang equipment, no? Hindi nagkakaroon ng tamang onboard training, no? And hindi na monitor yung mga training programs, no? ng various schools.
If the EMSA decides to reject the licenses of Filipino seafarers, it would be much more difficult to secure jobs.
Mas kawawa kami mga seaman. natural, mawawala kami ng trabaho.
But the Transportation Department and the Maritime Industry Authority, or Marina, clarified that the Philippines did not fail the audit. Authorities said they have already submitted proof of compliance over the grievances that EMSA mentioned.
Hindi po namin talaga malaman kung saan po nanggagaling yung mga balita na mayroon na desisyon at negative na ang finding sa atin. Madami pong deficiencies pero madami na din po tayong mga reformang ginawa at hindi pa po tayo nababa ng European Commission.
There is an estimated 600,000 Filipino seafarers worldwide, 50,000 of which are based in Europe. Sea-based OFWs are also responsible for bringing home $4.3 billion from January to August. Authorities said that they continue to adhere to global standards to ensure that Filipino seafarers remain employable.
Kami po dito sa Marina, isinasaayos po namin ang lahat para po may compliance tayo.
EMSA's decision, based on the compliance submitted by the Philippine government, is expected to come out sometime in June next year. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Now, the government has yet to set the new suggested retail price for sugar pending the completion of consultations. But the Agriculture Department says the possible range is at 85 to 90 pesos per kilo. Agriculture Assistant Secretary Cristina Evangelista says the Sugar Regulatory Administration will release the official SRP once it finishes consulting sugar traders, planters, and millers. She adds that the agency is also looking into the effects of Tropical Storm Paeng on sugar production.
We've monitored na meron nga pong effect yung nakaraang bagyo sa ating mga sugarcane planters, and we are closely coordinating po with SRA kung ano pong epekto nito as far as the volume of production.
PLDT has turned in another stellar earnings report card off the back of the sale of its telco towers. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez has this story.
It looks like Christmas came early for PLDT. The Pangilinan-led telco giant posted all-time high revenues for the first 3 quarters of 2022.
We have an all-time high 9 months revenue of almost 142 billion, so 141.9. That's an increase of 4.5%. EBITDA, again at an all-time high of 75.4 billion. So we are on track to hit our target of 100 billion for the year.
For the same period, its net income also skyrocketed 45% to 27.4 billion due in part to the sale of more than 1,000 of its towers. Still, the home and enterprise businesses brought in the bulk of revenues.
Leading the charge are home and enterprise businesses, which both have registered as well an all-time high from a 9-month reporting perspective. Home at 42.7 billion is up 21% year-on-year, and within home, our fiber business is up 52% to 35.7 out of the 42.7 billion.
Meanwhile, its fintech unit Maya is gaining momentum. Maya is one of the few fully digital banks licensed by the BSP. Just 5 months after its launch in April, it says it has already registered over 1 million users and 10 billion peso worth of deposits.
This rapid growth continues to underscore the growing preference of Filipinos for an all-in-one digital banking and payments experience. The game is now beyond wallet. It's about digital banking and wallet, multi-mode payments.
Veya added they'll soon make transactions simplified and more secure, with a feature wherein users can send and receive payments through the app with just a username. PLDT said it's currently reviewing its consolidated capital expenditures for this year, which could surpass the 85 billion initial guidance. Pandilio said the company is also on track to finish its largest data center by next year. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, we are One News.
And those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess Del Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. But don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Businessworld live here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos. Now, Dan, 7.7% inflation. That sure is going to hurt, especially for the consumer stocks here, which are the most hit.
You're absolutely right, Jess. Take a look at the worst performer of the day, that is pure gold. So this represents, our pure play consumption, diba? That's down by 2 8/8%. Will people be buying less, particularly food in the supermarkets? But you can also see a couple of our biggest property players here, Ayala Land and SM Prime, which are also dragging down the bourse, especially on the back of, interest rate hikes that might feed into less property buying, or people possibly having a hard time paying those property loans. And if you take a look at our index, we are down by 0.6%. Quick check on the peso this morning, Jess. Strengthening a touch, actually 58.79 on the back of the lower than expected trade deficit. But of course, as Professor Alvin Ang said earlier on, if you take a look at the year-to-date, it's not necessarily very, very positive there still.
Okay, now going back to the equity space here, telco stocks continue to be the defensive stocks here. Is there more room here for the upside?
Sana walang inflation dun sa internet and mobile. But apart from what we reported on PLDT, you've also got Globe, Ernest Koo having an interview with Bloomberg TV saying that they are going to be looking at the stock trading that's going to be happening in GCash. Recall that we did report on that launch earlier on, but he said they expect the take-up to be tremendous, doubling or tripling what the PSE has today. Now recall that GCash already has a loan portfolio of 40 billion pesos. They said that mobile service has matured. They're going to be reducing capital spending and deleveraging, and now focusing on other things like, becoming a bank, basically, Jess.
Yes, and then of course, lastly, RCBC, the stock skyrocketed yesterday.
Banks, exactly. 7% in 3 days, and yesterday up by more than 19% on the back of SMFG, that's Sumitomo Mitsui Bank, actually increasing their stake there to 20%. And take a look at that, 24 pesos and 30 centavos. That's higher than the 17 pesos that they were paying per share for RCBC. So another exciting bank there with some capital infusion, Jess.
Okay, again, inflation at a high, not the best news to end the week with, but some good news for you. It's her birthday today.
Yeah, I forgot
Something
about
to be celebrating. Of course, Danny, happy birthday.
Thank you, guys. I'm 27 years old today. Ang tanda na natin, Jess.
May inflation, may deflation sa age. Happy birthday, Danny.
Thank you guys for watching.
There you go.
And the best wishes for good health this year.
And again, that's it for today, November 4, 2022. Join us again Monday next week at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for your free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Stay safe, Philippines. We're One News, all sides, all the time.